Hey everyone, in today's video we're going to be replacing the bottom crank seal in my lawnmower. So let's get right into it. So the first thing I want to do is remove the engine, but before we do that I want to take off this gas tank and shroud, because it just kind of gets in the way in my opinion, and it'll be a lot easier to work on it if we remove it. So there's 5 screws holding it on. There's one here, here, there, and there. So I'm going to take all the screws out and then we're going to take this off. And if you're wondering why the fan's going, it's because, well, first of all, it's hot in here. And second of all, I don't want to work outside because, I mean, it's not as bad as it was yesterday, but there's a smoke haze in the air from the wildfires in Quebec. I'm in Canada, by the way, so, yeah, so yesterday there was, like, a lot of smoke in the air, and you couldn't even see, like, a kilometer away, which is kind of nuts, but, yeah, we have to work in the shop today because it smells smoky outside and not good. Oh, and one more thing. Before, like, anytime you work on a lawnmower, make sure you remove the spark plug cap, especially because there's no safety features that are going to prevent the engine from, like, starting up. Okay, so I already disconnected the fuel line and primer line when I drained the gas out of it. So it's completely bone dry, so there's no risk of spilling any gas in the workshop. So now we can just lift this off of here and pull the starter cord through here. There we go. And we do have to disconnect this switch. So actually I'll just unscrew it from here actually, make it easier. Get a slot screwdriver. And then just these 2 screws here. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is take off the engine because, I mean, I'm sure you can replace the seal with the engine on the deck, but I want to take it off because I think it's leaking elsewhere and I want to seal it up. And I want to degrease the whole and clean it. So let's tip it over and start taking the engine off. And that has gas in it. Okay, one sec. Okay, so actually before I take off the engine, I'm gonna remove the carburetor real quick just to eliminate the gas factor. Okay, so I tipped the lawnmower up and the carburetor is outside because I took it off. Now what we're gonna do is remove the blade. It's a lot easier if you use an impact, by the way. But you don't need one. Here we go, the blade's off. Now we're going to remove this adapter thing. So let me grab a hammer, I think, or something, and kind of tap around the edges and try to knock it off of there. There we go. And it's on a tapered shaft, so it can be a little bit stubborn sometimes. So there we go. Now what we have to do is I'm going to pick off all of this junk around the crankshaft, and we're going to take off the muffler cover. This is all the junk that was in the crankshaft, kind of nasty. So for the muffler cover, is it the same size? Nope, it's a 1/2 inch. Alright, so for the muffler, to remove that, it's 3 1/2 inch bolts, and I'm going to use an impact again just because it's faster, but you don't need one. 1, 2, and 3. And I'm wearing gloves because I don't want to get my hands all dirty. And there it is. And we'll clean all these parts outside with the degreaser, but that's what the Lawn Boy muffler looks like. Now let's take a peek and see what I've been nervous about, and that is going to be to see if the piston is all scratched. So I'll take you guys out of the tripod and we'll take a peek. Okay, so we're up under the lawnmower and the piston, let me get my light real quick, looks not bad, at least for right now. Sorry, this angle sucks. In there, yeah, see, it's not that scored, which is a good sign. So that's good. Alright, the next thing I'm gonna do is remove all the bolts that are holding on the engine. And then after I take out the bolts, we're going to take the engine outside and we're going to clean it off. Okay, so I took out all the bolts and I'm just holding the engine with my hand. And now I'm going to lift it out of here. And there we go. Engine's off. Now let's go outside and clean it up with some degreaser. Alright guys, so I just got back from inside. I just got back inside from degreasing the engine. And I just checked that our new seal is the correct size. So I just slid it over the crankshaft here and lined it up to the old one. And as you can see, it's a perfect fit. So what I'd like to do now is, I mean, normally What I usually do, excuse me, is just take out the old one and put in the new one. But since I want to ensure extra insurance and make sure this thing runs really good, is I want to take off this half of the, I want to take off this cover here that kind of sandwiches the two halves of the engine together. And I want to put some RTV silicone around the edges just to make sure that it seals good. So I'm going to undo the bolts and we're going to take it off. So I think they're a 1/2 inch, right? Those are. It must be 7/16. Yeah, some of them are 7/16, some of them are 1/2 inch. So I'm gonna take them all off, and I don't want to remove the flywheel if I don't have to, but I'll see. And if you're curious what bolts I'm taking out the front two, this one, and then I believe there's 2 more behind this cover. And it helps to wear gloves because lawnmowers are usually pretty greasy and dirty. Okay, so it turns out I have to remove the flywheel because I have to take off this fiberglass thing to get to the other bolts that hold on that cover. Okay, so now that our flywheel's off over here, I'm going to undo the rest of the bolts that are holding on this cover, and then we can take off our little plate over there. And also, the rest of the bolts holding on this are a 7/16, not 1/2 inch. Okay, so undid all the bolts holding that on. Now we can undo the other 2 1/2 inch bolts holding on this cover here. And they're sort of tight in there. Man. Wow. Has a top crank seal. Looks okay. There's that one, and here's going to be this one here. There we go. Now I'm going to take them both out, and we can pull off our little cover. Hopefully without wrecking the seal on the top, because I didn't buy another one. But yeah, as you can see, the bolt's a little bit corroded because it's a steel bolt in an aluminum engine. But that's normal for these. So next we're just gonna pop this off of here maybe. Somehow. There we go. It's off. And yeah, there's no gasket whatsoever. And there you go, the inside of a Lawn Boy engine. It's kind of neat. And yeah, as you can see here, the seal actually came off of its, one second, I'll zoom you guys in. The seal came off of its, came out of its little home there. So as you can, it's supposed to sit flat up here, but it's not. Top one looks pretty good, so we're just gonna do the bottom one today. And make sure that this thing here, whoa, make sure that little dowel there is in this groove so it stays locked in. So turn this like that, there you go. Now what I'm gonna do is clean up both of the surfaces, and then we're going to apply some, gonna clean up both the surfaces, then I'm gonna apply some gasket maker. And I decided I'm going to remove the pull starter from this housing just to make it a lot easier because I want to degrease this housing as well, and the gasket for the carburetor also comes off of there, so we'll set that aside. So as you saw in my pull start replacement video, there's only an Allen bolt right there holding it on. Here's an up close look at that cover. There's grass in the crankcase. How crazy is that? Yeah, so we'll go outside and degrease this really good and put it back on, and you can see there's like a little bit of browning there and on here as well, so we'll clean that out really good. Yeah, wow, I'm surprised there's actually no gasket between the two. That's kind of surprising to me. Okay, so I'm gonna clean the mating surfaces for this guy and that right now, and to do that I have a very soft wire brush here that I'm just gonna run over the edges like this for the whole thing and get it nice and clean. So I'm going to do that, and then we're going to apply the RTV and seal it up. And while we're doing this, we might as well remove the old seal from the crankshaft like that and set it aside because we're not going to need it. And we'll wipe all this off to make it nice and clean. And we'll take this off as well and wipe it off. And be careful because there are a bunch of roller bearings inside, so don't mess with that too much. There we go. This can go back on here. There. Now I'm going to wire brush these surfaces and we'll get them all nice and clean. Oh, and also, when you remove the flywheel, make sure that you keep track of the flywheel key. So I just left mine in the crankshaft. And I think what I'm going to do is put the old bottom seal at the top because the old top one, like, it's pretty nasty and chewed up. So, and the old bottom one looks to be in better condition. So I'm going to put this one over here because it looks a lot better shape than the old one did. Okay, so before we add the RTV to this cover, I'm going to slide in the new seal on the bottom because this cover, it's half, right? So it sandwiches it in like this. So I want to slide this in first. Oh, and make sure the opening end here goes towards the engine. So go like this, press it all the way in there. And I'm going to get a screwdriver and make sure that it's just all the way in there. Here we go, and same for the top one as well. So push it all in there. There. Now, and I will check this when I put the other half back on as well. So now, for the RTV, I'm going to apply just about the thinnest film ever because, where'd my pick go? Because I don't want to have a whole lot of squeeze out. So what I'm going to do is just pick off the old hardened RTV here. Gotta get it out of there. It's a little tricky at first because it doesn't, like, it's all hardened inside there. So I'm going to pick this out until it gets a good film going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a little bit here and there and smear it with my finger because I don't want to have too much, like I just mentioned. So now what I'm going to do is, now that I got oh, that's a lot. I got a lot on here. I'm just going to smear around with my finger and try not to get any inside the case. This will just ensure a proper seal compared to not having a gasket. So, and it's a good idea to wear gloves as I'm doing because this stuff gets everywhere. It's just like anti-seize. If you've ever worked with that, you know what I mean. Trust me, it's nasty. There we go. I've got our little film on there. Now I'm going to take off my glove because I don't want to get RTV everywhere. And we're going to install that on there. So I'm going to move you guys out of the way, sorry. And now we're going to get this, and it only goes on one way. So as you can see, there's a hole here and a dowel pin right there. We have to line up those two. So this goes like this. And try to go on in one motion. Don't try to like move it around a lot. Sometimes it won't want to go, but then you just gotta line it up. There we go. Push it on there. I have to spin the crankshaft a little bit to get it on there. And there we go. She's on. Now I'm going to tighten the bolts and push in the seal to make sure that we don't have any movement. So for the seal, I don't have anything to push it on there. I'm gonna use a screwdriver and just push it in there until it stops. And now we'll get a couple of bolts that I cleaned up. So there's one. Here's another one. And the 1/2" bolts go in first. There. And you're gonna want to tighten them up nice and even, not to like wreck the threads or anything. It's like I have to line up the crankshaft because it's not going in all the way. It's messing it up. What the hell? Come on. Get on there. It's not going on straight. Let me figure this out, then I'll turn you guys back on. Okay, so I finally smartened up and put it in the vise, and now I'm gonna tighten the bolts. And to tighten the bolts, you wanna go in a cross pattern just to ensure that you don't mess anything up. And don't tighten them all the way, go like a little bit at a time. This will ensure that you don't warp the cover. And to watch as you're tightening it to make sure the cover actually goes down onto the mating surfaces. Like, here, I'll zoom it in here. So as you're tightening it, excuse me, make sure that you watch it go, like the gap in here, make sure this gets narrower. So I want to tighten these up, and then, yeah, and I'm not sure of the torque spec, but do them so they're pretty tight. Don't overdo it, but don't underdo it. You know what I mean? Just kind of, you know, that feel. And then you can, when you're tightening this, you can also watch for the RTV squeeze out like we have right here. So that's a good sign. Okay, so now I'm gonna reassemble this off camera because this video is already like almost 20 minutes long, and you already saw me take it apart, so it's pretty much the opposite of that. So yeah, I'm gonna reassemble this, and then we're going to put the engine back on the deck, and then we're gonna fire it up. We're gonna have to start it tomorrow because I want to let the RTV cure 100% and not like, I don't want it to be like shot out when the engine starts up. So while we wait for the RTV to dry, I guess we can clean off the deck and sharpen the blade for fun, because the blade, get it here, she's pretty dull if you can't see all those little nicks and stuff. So yeah, we'll sharpen this up, and then this thing should really be throwing some grass at the side. And yeah, right there, you can sort of maybe tell. I don't know. Yeah, it's pretty bad. So anyway, I'm gonna reassemble the engine and get it back on the deck. Okay, guys, so I found some unfortunate news. So it turns out I need to get this bearing, because when I put it back together, I spun it over with my hands like this, right? And it made this clicking sound, like, yeah, this bearing is huge. So let me see if I can get a new one. And then we will assemble the thing and put it back on the mower. Alrighty guys, so I ordered the new bearing. It's on back order, so I'm not sure how long it'll take. So this video is going to have to be split up into two parts. So it's going to be this part, and then the next part where we're going to install the new bearing, and then put the engine back on the deck, and then hopefully fire it up. So anyway, with that, thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.